a lot to worry about. There's a lot of going down, you know, but I don't worry. I try to remain positive, you know, and I said try. And I know that love, you know, love is all about communication. That's why it's impossible. But I see a future where we're all in one big tent together talking on cell phones to people in some other tent somewhere. And I see a future where poverty and starvation have been eliminated from all news coverage. I see a future where there are no wars, just corporate-sponsored police actions with play-by-play on ESPN. And I see a future where concern for privacy is a thing of the past, because privacy, my friends, is a thing of the past. I see a future where major motion pictures are nothing but bald-faced hour-and-a-half-long commercials for talking toys and automatic weapons. And I see a future where we never have to handle anything again. We just buy stuff over the internet and have someone else throw it away for us. One world, one bank, one insurance provider, one big media conglomerate run by one megalomaniac for your safety and convenience. I see a future where children of every race and creed and color have equal opportunity to make running shoes for 12 cents an hour, where all obstacles to human development, rainforests, environmentalism, ethics have been washed away forever, where one man with guts and determination and an idea that could revolutionize the automobile industry can disappear without a trace. I see a future where slavery is good again, and I see a future of licensed merchandise and fast food tie-ins where even the second coming is cross-promoted. Get it? In one world, one bank, one processed food provider, one big healthcare conglomerate run by one greedy bastard for your safety and convenience. Sorry, I thought I was alone. I see a future where people's diversity is recognized and squelched at an early age, where all of humanity is united in the fight against whatever horrifying shit we've disturbed trying to colonize space. I see a future where the image of Gandhi is used to sell a computer. Wait, that happened already, and I see a future where Iraq does not have the bomb, and Korea does not have the bomb, and Pakistan does not have the bomb, and Microsoft does. In one world, one sperm bank, one assisted suicide provider, one big maximum security theme park run by the same guy who tells the president what to say for your safety and convenience. Yeah, for our safety and sing it with me as if you had no voice. For our safety and convenience. guns.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight's presentation, Stop the Digital Trap, Act Now to Stop It Before It Stops Us. Welcome to Truth Action Project. It is October the 17th, 2023, and tonight we have a very interesting lineup of guests. I would first, by the way, my name is Mike Zarzano. I'm a TAP board member. And tonight's guest, I would like to go down the list in the order that they will be presenting. First, we have Lisa Kastner of California. Lisa was an area coordinator for the organization Labeled GMOs. She is a spokesperson for the initiative WeForHumanity.org. She is the coordinator of the Joining Forces digital education team, formerly affiliated with Global Walkout. Then we have Stephen Ferry of Tennessee. Stephen is a writer, teacher, committed to fighting for freedom since the mid-70s. He founded Defending Humanity, defendinghumanity.global, to raise awareness about our rights as individuals being violated by the globalist agendas. He served as the U.S. coordinator for the Global Walkout Initiative and founded Joining Forces to help those fighting the various global agendas come together in the needed numbers to create the mass civil rejection that will unseat the globalists. And then the third guest is Nick Maiulo, North Carolina. Dan Maiulo is an attorney, educator, blogger on Dan's Substack on money issues and author of the book, The New Slavery, How Banks Systematically Steal Our Wealth. Dan is the coordinator of the Joining Forces Action Team regarding central bank digital currency, CBDC, and previously of Global Walkout. I would like to now invite Lisa Kastner to come on and give her presentation. Lisa, will you?
I'm happy to. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you able to hear me? Good. Wonderful. So thank you for having us. We're Dan and Stephen and then Michelle on Friday, and I are glad to be here speaking with your whole community. And many of us have seen things going on in the world that are not right, and we ask questions. And especially in the past 3 years since this COVID crisis, I've been asking a lot of questions and learning a lot of things I didn't know before. As many of you who are watching may have started exploring things that you didn't realize about the world before. And I've been trying to assemble them and end up asking a lot of questions and using my critical thinking skills to try to figure out what's going on. And in doing so, I've affiliated myself with a group called We for Humanity, which is a group of Holocaust survivors, their family and friends, and other people of goodwill throughout the world who see similarities between what's going on now and what happened in Europe in the 1930s. And in conjunction with that, I watched a video by one of our other affiliated participants in We for Humanity, whose name is Vera Sharav. Vera is a Holocaust survivor. She is a human rights activist, and she is very much concerned with protecting our rights to keep us from being experimented on, as occurred during World War II. And she spoke at the Nuremberg, the 75th anniversary for the Nuremberg Code in Nuremberg, Germany, last August of 2022. And she mentioned that it's very important for us to be aware of and to fight the issues related to digital currency and digital identity, that these were dangerous to our freedoms. And so that is where I started thinking about these questions and asking what is going on. And as I started looking into it, I discovered that there were many people who were concerned with this, who were seeing this, who were coming from various areas of the their fields were very different from each other. So I want to show you, starting out showing you a list. Can you see the shared screen there? Is that coming through okay?
Yeah, it's coming through good.
Okay, great. So that's my first slide. Stop the digital control trap, as you mentioned. This is a list. Vera Sharav. Okay, then we have Catherine Austin Fitz, an investment banker, founder of Solari.com, Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development quite a number of years ago, and tuned into some of the things that are going on in society and in the economy. And from her perspective, she's seeing that what's going on with the currency and the digital ID will be a form of slavery. It's a control grid. It's not really money. And she calls it a digital concentration camp, which is very powerful words. And this is not Vera Sharav talking about it. This is this banker talking about it. Then we have Aman Jabi, who is a facial recognition software developer. And from his perspective, looking at 5G, looking at facial recognition software and the different ways that they're able to watch us on cameras and put up cameras all over the place, all over the country, all over the world. He says that this digital, what's going on digitally, will be game over for Team Humanity. So I saw that about freedom. Richard Werner, who's a professor of banking and finance at Oxford University, says he's talked to some of the global bankers, and one of them showed him a small chip the size of a grain of rice that this banker said that they're planning on putting under the skin of every person to transmit whatever is in that chip. And so this is problematic. And he said that he's seen that piece, and he's talking about centralized currency as being dangerous because it's centralized control. We already have digital bank digital currency. It's a lot of what the banks work with now, but the fact that it would be centralized is the problem, and that would basically destroy our freedoms. Michael Yeadon, who is a biochemist, pharmacologist, worked at Pfizer for a number of years, sees lies that had happened. He has actually a document online called the COVID Lies, and as he's picked through what happened in the past few years, his conclusion is that where we're headed is a digital slaughterhouse. That they will, and I'll talk about who the they is, but the people who are the elitists are looking to get us to take all these shots, and if we don't take these shots, then we deprived of our freedoms, because the idea that we are being that these illnesses are really problematic is not, he's not seeing it fitting together the way that we've been told it fits together, and he's actually seeing that this is about our freedoms. So I'm gonna show you here a meme. Aldous Huxley, who was a globalist, and we think of him as a fiction writer, but he was also shared a lot of philosophy in what he wrote. And here he says in 1931, the perfect dictatorship would have the appearance of a democracy, but would basically be a prison without walls, in which the prisoners would not even dream of escaping. It would essentially be a system of slavery where through consumption and entertainment, the slaves would love their servitudes. So let's look at what is being gradually brought to us in the area of digital control in our lives. Let's start out by looking at, on the left side of this picture, you can see where it says, outside the trap are the freedoms that we value. So we could all agree, I believe, that we value our freedom of speech. We value our freedom to buy what we want, eat what we want, go where we want, protect our health using our own choices about what we do with our bodies and our children's bodies, raise our children as we want, own anything we want, own anything at all, associate with whomever we want freely, and have freedom of religion. So, however, get this here. Oh, I don't. Okay, got it. I want to get the want to get this toolbar that has a little pointer. Oh, it's not doing it. Okay. All right. So I want to show you the idea these people have is that you will not be able to access. Excuse me, I can't get this little box to get off the screen. Okay, there we are. Thank you. So their idea is to get us into a trap. And I'm showing it as the shape of an octagon because that's like a stop sign and it will stop us from having our freedoms. So let's go around the circle or the octagon, and you can see what these aspects of the trap that they're laying for us includes. So the number one is the smartphone as surveillance. Now, what you have to realize is that smart is not because we're smart and we bought it. It's actually, it's smart because they're smart that they got us to buy it. It's an acronym, and it stands for surveillance, monitoring, analysis, reporting, technology. You cannot turn it off. Even when it's turned off, it sees and hears you unless you remove the battery. And that's information from Edward Snowden, who used to work in American national security. Number two, digital identity and QR codes, including your personal QR codes. Let me show you a QR code. Whoops. Yeah, how do I, Here, a QR code looks like this. It's got the box, the black and white box. I hope you can see that here. You can, people use it at the restaurants and now, they scan things. So you have a QR code, your own personal QR code. It might be on your skin, or you'd have a chip under your skin. And this digital technology will link you personally to the blockchain, which is a giant database ledger. Eventually, your body would have this technology on it or in it. The third one is central bank digital currency, which we're calling CBDC. And I'm using currency in a very loose way. I imagine quote marks around currency because it would replace all US dollars. CBDC would be its use would be a privilege that can be turned off. We are not talking about cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is decentralized. We are talking about digital currency that's controlled by the central bank. Number four, the blockchain, which is a giant database, as I mentioned, has records of your purchases, your vaccine data, your health records, your finances, etc. These records create a combined profile of your behavior. Amazon, for example, is a key compiler of data. Now, we all know that things are linked right now to our Social Security number. Imagine, if you will, that every single thing in your life is connected to your Social Security number. And we don't know what number they're going to assign people. Let's say it's your Social Security number. When you purchase something, they'll know it. It will be attached to that. When you apply for a loan, okay, we're used to that. When you purchase insurance, okay, maybe we're used to that. But when you want to go buy food, it will also be attached to that. Anything related to your health, or your school, your relationships, all this information will be categorized to be about you. So it could be a little scary how much information they would have and compile about you and what they might do with it. Okay, so number five, other smart, that is surveillance devices, collecting and transmitting your personal data, including home security systems, Alexa, Ring, Nest, Hey Google, vacuum robots, utility meters, computer chips in your car, your home appliances, even in electric toothbrushes. And in Sweden, they're finding out what people have in their mouths because they have smart electric toothbrushes. Oh, they have smart beds, also adjustable beds. So number six. Oh, also another thing about this smart devices, in addition to smart devices being outside of us, We also know that there's devices that can be inside of us. For example, people have a pacemaker and it might transmit data, or other kinds of chips that are put in somebody to regulate or transmit to the doctor if there's something wrong with them. However, have been found under dark field microscopy that the shots that people have been taking recently have quantum dots in them and self-assembling nanoparticles, and they're finding people in people's blood. They're finding under these special microscopes, they're finding computer chips, so that there's chips potentially inside people as well. And those can be something that we may be able to clear out, but we need to be aware that there's there's a potential that we're being watched all the time in many kinds of ways. Number 6, social media recording your views, permanent record of your online searches, monitoring of your emails and texts. Number 7, what are called smart cities, sometimes 15-minute cities, collecting information about you with surveillance cameras, including who you associate with, and facial recognition, use of 5G towers with potential for weaponized lethal electric waves. If you go online, you will find out how 5G is a military weapon. Biometric data, number 8, a retina scan, thumb, palm prints, facial recognition, heartbeat, or emotional responses as you watch a video. All these things can be picked up and again, put into the blockchain database about you. How did you respond to this video? What did you post online? All these things can all be compiled. So let's go on to this, a basic idea of how this digital trap would work. Okay, start at the left where it says uses. You have a device, either you're starting with your smartphone or maybe now you have a chip in your hand or a digital tattoo, and that expresses your identity, or maybe you have a QR code tattooed on your body. And then, so you go to the store, you want to buy some food, and you scan your hand. And then, of course, the computer knows that you're at the market. So it has the information about the market and the information about you. Both of those pieces of information are sent to the database, and the database analyzes, here on the third column from the left, it analyzes your behavior against environmental or immunization requirements or social or political views. All kinds of things can be considered. What you've purchased before, and then it will decide how it's going to control your life. Will you be allowed access to the building? Will you be allowed to shop? Will you be allowed to purchase certain things? Or will you be blocked? Now, some of you might recognize that this kind of setup of blocking of rights, because this is the kind of thing that they have in China, and we don't imagine that it would be here. However, there's many signs that this is being rolled out here. Now in China, the spring of 2022, people wanted to have a protest about something with their bank. People were communicating with their phones that they were going to all go to some town where they were going to have a protest. And the protest, to get there, they'd have to go on the subway. And there were people whose phones blocked them from going to the subway, getting on the subway. The indication on the phone was it showed as red, saying that they test positive for COVID. These are people who were well. The next day it said that they test negative for COVID, which means they were well. First they said they were sick, then they were well, and it was used as an excuse to keep people from getting on that train to go to the protest. That's how this kind of thing could really work. Now, you should know, I want to go into the evidence that this is going on in the United States, and it's going on at an international level, so that people can take this seriously, because they know this is a lot for people to absorb. So I want to first start out with indications that there are global forces and groups and people at work looking to institute this. And then I want to talk about some of the things going on in the United States. Then I'm going to talk about how they've managed to manipulate us as far as they've gotten to manipulate us, and some indication of what people can do. Although I want to let people know that we're going to talk about the action steps, more about what people can do in the campfire on Friday. And we're just going to give a little bit of information about that today. And my colleagues, Dan and Stephen, are going to offer their perspectives from what they see. But I'm going to go ahead right now. And first of all, I'm going to give you the information about the international groups. You should know that there's a network of globalist organizations that represent the ruling power elite or elitists that aspire to greater money and control over all resources on the planet. And to them, we are resources. They don't see us as a soul sent down here by our creator to be of service in the world, to do good things, to have some kind of important mission. We are just as good as cattle, I suppose. They have an idea for us, and they're working together for their goals. So I'm going to mention some of these organizations, and I'm going to show you a few very short videos so you can see the verification. And there's plenty of more information online. There's plenty of other people who are talking about these same things. But let's start, for example, with the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum is a lobbying group that promotes its positions in many countries by co-opting our leaders. And this, I'm going to show you now a clip of a video with a Cornell University economist who spoke earlier this year at the World Economic Forum about using CBDC, which is the central bank digital currency, this fake money that they'd like us to replace our money with.
One final note I will make is that if you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential, not just about digital.
Can't see the video.
No.
Okay, let's try that again. Okay.
Thank you.
I could hear it, we just couldn't see it.
I wonder why. Okay. Okay, you see it now.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's on.
One final note.
Can you hear it?
yes.
Okay.
What I will make is that if you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential gains. It's not just about digital forms of physical currency. You can have programmability, units of central bank currency with expiry dates. You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it, or a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable, like, say, ammunition or drugs or pornography or something of the sort. And that is very powerful. One final note.
Okay. So. So as you heard Professor Prasad say, they want to be able to control things that we normally have freedom to decide here, and including it would undercut the Second Amendment rights in the Bill of Rights. Now, the second organization to mention is the World Health Organization, or the WHO, whose immunization agenda 2030 would force every person on the planet, with no person left behind, to have 500 injections in the next 7 years, which no one could survive, gene-altering shots on an mRNA platform. The WHO is dominated by communist China and the eugenicist Bill Gates. Third organization, the Bank for International Settlements, is a global central bank in charge of all central banks. The BIS is the true controller of the Federal Reserve Bank, which issues what we think of as American currency. The Bank for International Settlements wants one world digital currency, and the globalists have been talking about this for more than 100 years. In reality, digital currency is a control system. Here's what the manager of the Bank for International Settlements has in mind for us. This video is from 3 years ago.
CB.
Can you hear that?
No, it's a blank screen.
Okay. It's showing on the top that when I enlarged it, I'm going to try this one more time and I'm not going to enlarge it. So we'll see. Hopefully that will work. All right, so
Yeah, I think Zoom is having some audio issues, not playing
okay.
audio at full volume for some reason.
Well, I can make the volume higher if on this. Let's try this. Okay. All right, let's do this.
We have the video.
Okay, I didn't play it yet.
All our analysis on
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Okay.
all our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash, and there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
Okay, when he talks about differences about what cash is, what they want it to be is a liability on their books that they only pay us when they think we're well enough behaved. That's a redefinition of cash, because cash right now is something that if you wanted to, you could stick it under your mattress and you always could have it and you could spend it on whatever you want. So the central banks have been testing, coordinating the central bank digital currency that's being rolled out in other countries. They're testing throughout Project Icebreaker here to see that all the various countries' monies can be coordinated together with the Bank for International Settlements as the central hub. Ideally, however, they would like there to be one currency. In fact, they've already brought out a new currency, that the international currency for CBDC, the Universal Monetary Unit, or UMU. And its character is a U with the two dots, the umlaut over the top. And they ideally would like us to all use that. But for right now, they would, as a preliminary thing, they want us to have our country's digital currency. Now, the United Nations is planning a digital ID to be linked to bank accounts and has several policy briefs related to it. I want to show you a video here by an economist named Dr. Pippa Malmgren, who spoke at the 2022 World Government Summit. Now, for those of us who, oops, that's not going to work. Okay, let's try this again. For those of us who might say there's such a thing as a world government, we can see here right on the screen that this
what
is what we're talking
underpins
about.
a world to Nixon with a kind of view of the financial structure is to absolutely everything else. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new accounting is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. In my opinion, we're going to need a digital constitution of human rights if we're going to have digital money. But also,
the people behind this scheme have not been talking about giving us a digital this plan for the human rights that she's talking about. She sees that there's a problem, but it is not being addressed. So let's see here, how is this proceeding in the United States? Those are some of the global voices. So I'm going to quickly go through some of the developments here in the US that verify things are moving forward. And I'm happy to share these slides afterwards if somebody is looking to have the material. Joe Biden issued an executive order in March of 2022, looking to go forward with digital currency in the United States to replace the traditional dollar. The major banks and the New York Fed, the Federal Reserve, started a digital dollar pilot. This was a year ago. It went for 12 weeks. They tried out already having digital currency. The Federal Reserve also did a pilot climate scenario analysis designed to enhance the ability of supervisors and firms to measure and manage climate-related financial risks. Now, think about it. Is there a great risk with the climate if it rains extra or if it's sunny? I don't really think that what we're talking about here is the risk that they want us to think that there is. I think that this is a way that they have in mind to condition use of money. So we have to think about what it is that what it is they're talking about. Now, the Federal Reserve announced a new program called Fed Now to set up an infrastructure for CBDC, an instant fund transfer program, with the eventual goal that people would be banking directly with the Federal Reserve and not have not work with work with their bank. Dan will talk more about the banking, so we'll let him focus on that. That is his specialty, and I will move along. The Uniform Laws Commission has issued a Amendment 12 to the Uniform Commercial Code. They want all the states to pass it. California has passed it. Other states have passed it. It's uniformlaws.org, and that is a way to help CBDC be facilitated to become the monetary use, the way that we do business in every state of the country. There's a digital health ID being implemented by our government. There was a patent issued in 2022 to Microsoft for a digital sensor that can read your bodily activity and communicate it with digital currency. The world leaders last November, which is 2022, signed a declaration for a global vaccine passport system, which would mean that you needed to have certain immunizations in order to travel, and verification of that, starting with the next pandemic. Now, I don't know how they know there will be a next pandemic, but that is what they stated. So Amazon has started palm scanning payment technology in their Whole Foods locations. The local one near me already has some of their equipment set up that people can try it out. It means that you pay with your hand and you've recorded your credit card. It's connected to Alexa. You can see videos about it online. Your shopping cart is a special shopping cart. But also, if you don't have a scan, there's a way for them to not let you in the store. So for all the convenience you have, it also is a potentially too much control on us. Airports are pushing iris scanning around the world. WorldCoin is a ball to collect people's iris scans around the world so they can record them all. People who are speaking out are having their being restricted from using their money, or fundraising for them is being cut off. We saw this with the Canadian truckers. We've seen the debanking of people who are speaking in opposition to whatever the desirable narrative is. So we know this can be done. We see Dr. Joseph Mercola's staff and his organization were debanked. A British politician, Nigel Farage, whose views were conservative, was debanked. We're seeing a lot of things that we really should not be seeing in a free country. Home Depot is rolling out facial recognition technology, but many store chains already are using retina scan technology, and they don't have signs about it. But it's possible that we are, we're being scanned already. So now, what do the globalists have to say about digital ID? They they want the World Health Organization. I missed something here. The World Health Organization sees the QR code as the way that they will determine that everyone has taken all their injections. It's actually, if you look in a book called The Worldwide Corona Crisis by Professor Michel Chossudovsky, who's an economist in Canada. In chapter 13, he's talking about the QR code, and he's mentioning Peter Kernick, who used to work, I think, at the World Bank or at one of the other, maybe it was the IMF, one of the globalist organizations. And Peter Kernick is talking about how they are looking to to enforce this. Now let's look quickly here. I know I want to catch up quickly because I want to have the other the gentleman have a chance to talk. So let's look here at the digital identity. The World Economic Forum wants us to have a digital identity. Everything that we have in our lives, we would get access to through the digital identity. It's a no trust system, as Aman Jabi talks about. We're moving to a no trust system. They don't trust us unless we prove who we are. And that means that once we show them who we are, they can tell us no. So purchasing things, let's say your credit card doesn't work. Let's say your electric car does not work. Let's say you can't get into your house because a ring is somehow locked something. Or I don't know how Ring works, but there's different things. Let's say your utilities don't work because they have smart meters, or your appliances don't work because of something that once everything has a chip in it and becomes electronically controllable, everything that we have access to where we have to scan ourselves is feasibly something that could be turned off. And that is the way these people want it. They don't want us to have mobility. They don't want us to have access to healthcare unless on our money, our food, our travel, being able to vote, using your phone. These are all up for grabs with this kind of a system. Now, we're not the only people who are concerned about this. This man is named Neil Kashkari, and he's the president of one of the branches of the Federal Reserve. Let's listen to what he has to say. Oops. I'm sorry, are you able to hear this?
No, not yet.
Okay, sorry.
Can't
I
see
realize
or
I
hear
have to press these buttons right, and I have to move something. This is just a little awkward. I'm so sorry. Okay, let's see if we can do this now.
I'm pretty skeptical. I keep asking anybody at the Fed or outside of the Fed to explain to me what problem this is solving. I can send anybody in this room $5 with Venmo right now. Right? No, seriously. So what is it that a CBDC could do that Venmo can't do? And all I get is a bunch of hand waving. I get well, maybe it's better for financial inclusion. Maybe it's better for cross-border remittances. Maybe. Is there any evidence that it is? And, they say, well, what about China? China's doing it. Well, I can see why China would do it. If they want to monitor every one of your transactions, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. If you want to impose negative interest rates, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. And if you want to directly tax customer accounts, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. So I get why China would be interested. Why would the American people be for that?
And so the answer about why the American people would be for that is because we're being played. There's a psychological war for our mind. And we have been subjected to decades of manipulations and maneuvers where the information about this has been hidden and poo-pooed while they proceed to go go forward with their plans. And if you mention that these things are going on, you sort of just, people will laugh you off. But at the same time, we have to realize that we've been maneuvered, because once we realize we've been maneuvered, we can stand up and say, no, if you don't know what's going on, you can't resist it. And we need to resist this in order to protect our freedom. So I want to show you quickly the kinds of things that have been done to manipulate us. So the first thing is the normalization of the tools of enslavement. First of all, we've gotten used to, all these various technologies. The QR code scanning is convenient. The smartwatches are cool, and the smartphones are handy, and I don't have to look at a map. I don't even, people don't know how to read a map. nowadays. Necessary non-cash payment options, promoted safety from cameras, all kinds of things have become necessities or convenience or make you safe. But that's because they wanted those things to be there. And certainly they serve us in those ways. But it has to do with encouraging a tunnel vision in each of us. You see this man, he's been directed towards seeing convenience, but he doesn't really notice the other issues. And, you know, he could be geared back to it. It's, you know, just let's just have you focus on the cool stuff. Don't worry about the social credit scores or the frozen funds that somebody can hack your account, zero privacy, and centralized control and traceability and no anonymity. Like the fellow who was singing in that song at the very beginning, that the world that we have will not have any of these opportunities. It will just be convenient. But convenience in itself does not serve us. We have to be aware that there's a gradualism here. And when you are heated up in the pot like these frogs, you could boil to death along with your freedoms because they would just be taken away. Now, we don't realize that we're being watched. And I'm going to show you this picture here, MIT Technology Review. This woman her pictures of herself, including sitting on the toilet, was transmitted to a social media type of setup. I don't think it was Facebook. You'd have to read the article here, MIT Technology Review. But her information, her pictures, she didn't know she was having her pictures taken, and they got transmitted somewhere else. And people were able to see her sitting on the toilet and her child looking at the machine. And 15 other private photos were posted here at closed social media groups. So we need to know that when we have technology in our homes, it's collecting our data without our consent, potentially. There's something called surveillance capitalism. There's a book and a video on it. Companies don't feel obligated to tell you that they are collecting your information and selling it. And this is part of the value of selling their product to you. And that may be why some of these products are so inexpensive, because they actually have an aftermarket value to the company. Now we also have something of a con game going on, con being confidence. So the untrustworthy establish our confidence and then stick it to us. And good people can be lulled into trusting others because most people, as Vera Sharav says, are good. And so they don't see the evil in others. I don't want to go there yet. Societal values are also manipulated without our knowing. The Culture Code, for example, was a book where coffee sellers decided, as an example, that they manipulate our culture. Coffee sellers wanted to sell coffee in Japan. Japanese weren't interested in buying coffee. So they said, you know what, we'll just make candies and cookies for the children. And they got the children to eat all these coffee flavored things. And so they raised up, in one generation, they raised up a generation of coffee drinkers. And now think about what's been done with the technology. That some of us who are on this call are older. We did not grow up with this. We did not become emotionally dependent on it the way little children have become emotionally dependent on their phones and their computers and all kinds of technology. It's not our friend. It's just one of those things that's a tool. And that's the way I think it should be. But once you've made it that somebody is going to have a nervous breakdown because they can't use their technology and they can't reach their friends through it, then you realize that potentially what's happened is that we've created an addiction because it serves the people who've encouraged it. Now, the last thing I want to tell you on psychology is something called the Hegelian dialectic, or problem response solution. And so you see this girl saying to her father, Dad, why do people give up freedom for security? And he says, it's called the Hegelian dialectic. They create a problem. The problem creates a reaction. If there is enough fear and hysteria, people will not accept the solution that they'll not only accept the solution that limits their rights, but they will beg for it. We see a lot of this right now. And now when you start seeing this, you can see it in a lot of places. I'm seeing it all over the place when I am watching news items come in. So we can consider if this is really part of the story about what happened with the COVID crisis. So look at these steps. The COVID crisis was brought in for the shot. The shot was brought in for the digital passport. Remember, they wanted us to get these digital ID vaccine passport things? The digital passport was brought in for the biometric ID, where they would scan us. The biometric ID was brought in for the central bank digital currency. And the central bank digital currency, God forbid, will be brought in to enslave us. The way for us to deal with this is to not be shepherded into the digital corral trap. There's a great analogy. There's a story about the pigs of the Okefenokee swamp, which is very interesting, and it's exactly the same story. We are being herded into a corral, a digital corral, and once they get us in there, they want to shut the door and lock it with the key, and our job is to stand up and walk out. So our power is in our numbers and our non-compliance. And so, Chris, I'm going to play this video of Aaron Russo. He was an award-winning producer of movies, and he did a movie called America from Freedom to Fascism. And this will be my last thing I'm going to show you. So let me just cue up this little video. It's about 1 minute. So let's see here. Oh, that's not going to show it. All right. I have to, every time I have to press these little buttons first, and then do this. Okay, 59:48. Okay, so hold on.
Can you enlarge the screen on that?
Yes, I will.
What you're doing, what I'm doing, what other people like us are doing, can affect the change that people will stand up and say, "Hey, I've had enough." The thing is, we have one advantage. That they need us to cooperate. See, if we don't cooperate with them, they can't win. And so they always need our cooperation to go along with their programs.
They try to sell us.
Right. They try to sell us. Democracy, this majority says this, believe in this, do that. The war on terror, we got to be scared. They're always trying to do things to sell us so that we'll go along with them. And once we learn not to cooperate with them, then we win the game. And that's the point. Don't cooperate with them. Don't go along with the program anymore. Stop it. Join forces. You and I should.
And that's where I end, joining forces, which is our group. I will hand off to Dan.
Just a second, Lisa,
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
What realistically do you think is a timeline for the rollout of the CBDC? I mean, people have been talking about it for over 6 months now. And is there any type of evidence surfacing that it is going to be rolled out and put into use? Or
Mike, I'm going to defer to Dan. He's going to present all about that. He's been following that very closely, and he's my source. So I'm before I go, let me just show you one. I have two quick things here. Our strategy and non-compliance, our key weapons, our mind, our soul, our feet, our mouth, our wallet, and our tech that we use. That ways that we can act are by limiting surveillance, by our cell phones and other technology, refusing QR codes and digital chipping and digital ID, fighting back against digital currency, keeping your personal data private, educating others, and preparedness for non-compliance and self-sufficiency should these plans go forward. And if possible, develop relationships with law enforcement in case they will be able to support our non-compliance. I want to step out now, Mike, and I want to have Dan answer that for you.
that was a great presentation, Lisa. We really,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You had a wealth of information there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I want to have my friends share.
Chuck, did Chuck have any questions for Lisa?
No, let's proceed. Let's go. Let's follow. We have two more speakers, and I guess Dan is coming next. So absolutely, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. Please proceed.
All right, Dan. We're ready for Dan. Please give us your presentation, Dan.
Okay, very good. All right, I'm going to give you a little banking history. For hundreds of years, banks have been ripping off the people. Across the world, various objects and materials have performed the function of money, of a medium of exchange and a store of value. Gold emerged as the premier metal of choice as money, with silver a close second. Banking began with people depositing their gold or silver with a goldsmith or other merchant in exchange for a note. A note is a promise to pay. The goldsmith, merchant, or banker issued the note, as a promise to pay back the gold or silver that was deposited. Soon the notes became bearer notes. That is, whoever held the note was entitled to redeem it for the deposited gold. That meant that the notes themselves could circulate as money. The bankers knew that very few people came to redeem their gold, and so they issued more notes than they had gold to justify. That is the very definition of inflation, creating more currency than actually exists, and thereby ruining the value of that currency. It's a form of fraud. In the United States, this happened regularly from the very start of the nation. Various banks across the country would issue banknotes that were not supported by the gold deposits in the banks. This resulted in a history of malinvestment caused by inflation, followed by contraction, which resulted in bank runs, and the failure of banks, businesses, and farmers all around. These practices culminated in the Panic of 1907, which was used as the excuse to usher in the Federal Reserve System, what we call the Fed, in 1913. However, the Fed did nothing to stop the cycles of inflation and contraction and the resulting damage from these practices. It just centralized the practice, allowing the big banks to engineer the economy for their own benefit to the detriment of the rest of us. Since 1913, when the dollar was worth 1/20th of an ounce of gold, the dollar has been under a concerted program of destruction and is now worth about 1/100th of what it was. The dollar has lost about 99% of its value since 1913. In 1913, a Federal Reserve note could be redeemed for 1/20th of an ounce of gold. Now a Federal Reserve note can be redeemed for nothing. They are just a huge fraud. We are now in the end stages of this process. At this time, the US debt is growing at the rate of $1 billion per hour, or put another way, $1 trillion every 45 days. The Fed is about to pull the plug, but before it does, the dollar is on life support. The destruction of small banks and consolidating into big banks around the world is part of the preparation for the introduction of central bank digital currencies. Just as the Panic of 1907 was the excuse for the Federal Reserve System, the destruction of the dollar will be the excuse for the CBDCs, along with other excuses such as fighting terrorism, crime, and identity theft. CBDCs are the final collar around your neck. Part of the preparation for CBDC in the US is the Fed Now program rolled out in July, in which the Fed will participate directly in transfers of money between banks, businesses, and individuals around the country. The excuse is that the Fed Now program will facilitate instant payments, even though that already exists, and we don't need any Fed Now program. The plan is for the Fed to completely take over all banking functions from the existing banks. The Fed CBDC will consist of an account for each person with the Fed directly, and you will no longer have a bank account. You will no longer have the ability to withdraw cash from your CBDC account with the Fed. At the state level, what are presently called the 2022 amendments to the Uniform Commercial Code have been introduced into the legislatures of about 28 states and fully adopted in 11 of those states. These amendments provide the legal structure to allow for the implementation of CBDCs around the country. And one aspect of that, if you want to get into finding out about that, the text is available, and they're declaring that cryptocurrencies are not money, so that's including Bitcoin. We have the Digital Dollar Project, which produced a white paper published January of this year. I can provide that to you if you're interested. That's an NGO. We're plagued with NGOs that are trying to do things to restrict our freedoms in many different areas. This is just one of them. There's current legislation pending. We have HR 1122. That's a CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act introduced by Representative Tom Emmer. It has 46 co-sponsors. Its status is it's now before the House Committee on Financial Services. The unfortunate thing is that it doesn't really do anything because there are too many caveats in there. We have HR 2435, the Gold Standard Restoration Act. That was introduced by Representative Alexander Mooney. That has 3 co-sponsors. That's also before the House Committee on Financial Services. That discusses the problems with the Fed's 2% inflation target and the benefits of the gold standard. It directs the Treasury Secretary to define the dollar as a certain weight of gold based on the closing market price of gold on a date not later than 24 months after the passage of the act. So that actually does do something if it were ever passed. We have HR 3712. That's the Digital Dollar Pilot Prevention Act, also from Representative Alexander Mooney. That has 19 co-sponsors. That's also before the House Committee on Financial Services. That prevents the testing of a CBDC by the Fed on its own or in cooperation with any private entity. This would effectively nullify Biden's executive order, which Lisa had mentioned, which is instructing the Fed to experiment with CBDCs. In North Carolina, we have House Bill 690, which prohibits payments to the state using CBDC, and it prohibits participation by the state in the Federal Reserve testing of a CBDC. In Texas, we have the Texas Transactional Currency Bill, HB 4903. That has 44 co-sponsors, and presently it's on the general calendar. And I believe Texas is out of, the legislature is not in session right now, or getting back into session. I'm not exactly sure how that works. But that would be a wonderful thing to have that, because people outside of Texas could still use that same currency based on gold and silver. In Tennessee, there's a proposal for a sovereign state bank, which would act as a depository for people's gold and silver. The problem is that, with all this legislative activity, I'm not sure any of this is going to work, but that's another issue. The other topic I wanted to address was the digital ID. We have the Senate bill introduced in the US Senate by Senator Kirsten Sinema called the Improving Digital Identity Act of 2023. That has 1 co-sponsor, and that's in the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. And that would establish a task force to explore improving digital identity to avert fraud, prevent identity theft, and enable individuals to verify their identities online more easily and reliably, and that could result in a more secure online environment. Lots of nice sounding words. Out of the text, quote, for instance, some states, including Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Utah have begun offering mobile driver's licenses or mobile IDs to citizens, and 9 other states are piloting mobile licenses. And that's as of the date that the bill was introduced. That information may have changed since then. The bill specifies that the task force may not recommend the creation of a single identity credential provided or mandated by the federal government, a unilateral national identification registry, or a requirement forcing any individual to use digital identity verification for a public purpose. Now, the fact that they say in the bill that the task force may not recommend these things does not mean they can't do it. So this is an indication that these are the things they actually want to do, after they use up this task force and it gets discarded. At this point, the bill's never been passed, so the task force doesn't even exist at this point. I wanted to talk about what does exist. In India, they have what is called the ADHAR, ADHAAR, which is the Indian version of digital ID. And it was introduced as the Unique Identification Number, or UID. This is under the administration of the Unique Identification Authority of India. And just want to share the screen here real quick. So Here you can see, well, I hope you can see this. Please update your ADAR for continued accuracy of demographic information. So this is what pops up on the screen if you go to the website. And here's some text from the website. Initially, the UIDAI sought basic information like name, address, gender, date of birth, father and mother's name, and biometrics. Later, the ADAR form also had a section B, which sought other additional personal information like phone and mobile number and email, which, though optional, were pressed onto unsuspecting people by the enrolling agencies, often without the knowledge or concurrence of UIDAI. In some states, found experts, a section C was also added, which sought financial information and an option to link one's bank account with ADAR. So you can see the intent is to link the money to the digital ID. Furthermore, the Attorney General Mukul Rohtagi, which the Attorney General of India, I suppose, has sung a different tune, saying that privacy, the main concern over ADAR, was a non-issue. He told the Supreme Court that Indian citizens cannot claim privacy as a fundamental right. He cited a 1954 judgment that says that privacy is not a fundamental right. These paragraphs come out of this article, which is on this this address from Outlook India. So we also have in the United States ID.me. So the digital wallet that puts you in control. That sounds nice. So that already has 112 million plus members who have ID.me wallets, 600 plus partners. So these are various vendors, such as Lowe's Hardware and others. And this is promoted through the use of discounts from various vendors, the 600 plus partners, and also on prescriptions. They like to emphasize that. And here, how your ID.me wallet works: control your digital identity. So the digital identity already exists; it's already there, and these various things are coming at us from different directions. It's not just one thing, one central push. It's from all around. We also have what's called login.gov. So here you can get a digital ID to log into various government accounts, Social Security account, the IRS, and so forth. So here they show, this is from the login website, face or touch unlock. So here it says, face or touch unlock lets you sign in by using a scan of your face or fingerprint. This allows you to authenticate without using a one-time code. So they're trying to push this as a convenience. So just some of the fun things that they're offering. There's also a national digital health ID system being put in place by the Office of the National Coordinator, or the ONC, for Health Information Technology. And this is under the Department of Health and Human Services. That contains a lot of nice sounding but meaningless language. It just talks about how wonderful everything will be. Once these CBDCs are in place, along with the digital ID, the controls will be instituted. Initially, there will be no controls because they don't want you to know that they're going to have controls. But once everyone's in place, the controls will be instituted, including what you can and can't buy, where you can and can't go, etc. There are political efforts underway to fight implementation of this slave system. Governor Kristi Noem has vetoed the 2022 amendments in South Dakota, and Governor Ron DeSantis has declared that CBDCs will not be allowed in Florida, although I doubt whether that really has any meaning. Various state legislators around the country are fighting against them as well. Missouri and Oklahoma both have legislation pending that prohibits enforced use of CBDCs. But having said that, I have very little faith that the political process will be successful in stopping CBDCs. In my mind, we cannot defeat these CBDCs by fighting, only by peaceful non-compliance. I don't want to I'm not going to encourage anyone to any kind of violent action. I'm also not going to discourage anyone from defending themselves as they see fit. We have to refuse to participate. On a personal level, you need to decide to forego the adoption and the use of CBDCs, which means you may have to do without a number of amenities and income streams that you are used to. We need to prepare for getting cut off from many things that we are used to. We need to have cash on hand for at least as long as cash is economically functional. We need to have real money, such as gold and silver, and it is probably a good idea to have some alternative currencies too, such as Bitcoin or other cryptos, or even alcohol and tobacco. But we also have to think in terms of real assets, a way to generate energy, a way to get shelter, food and water, gardens, tools, and most importantly, community. No one is going to survive in isolation. No one person can do everything. From what you can do, find what you can do and find others with complementary skills. It is time to build parallel structures to replace the slave system now being completed. Additionally, it is time to start constructing an alternative banking system which can handle large transactions over long distances. Bitcoin might fill this need. I'm not a banker, so I don't know what's involved in building such a system, so we need to find people who understand banking and the technical details of making it work for the people on an honest basis. This would need to be an asset-based system rather than a debt-based system in which the banks steal wealth from the people. It may be possible to achieve this on the state level. And maybe most importantly of all, change the question in your mind from what do I need to survive to what can I do to help those around me? This attitude adjustment may be the most important step you can take to ensure your survival. And my last message today is if you value your physical survival more than your freedom, then you're already dead. Thank you.
Well, Dan, I'd like you to answer the question I posed to Lisa.
Yes.
How soon do you think this is going to be rolled out? They've been rumoring it for months.
I believe it's going to coincide with the collapse of the dollar, and I can't predict when the dollar will collapse. Part of the reason for the kinetic action in the Middle East right now is because that allows the central banks to expand the money supply even further, and that's what keeps it alive. The only way that these fiat currencies can continue is these debt-based currencies is by issuing more debt, more and more debt, more and more currency. Eventually, at some point, it's all going to collapse. But I can't tell you when that's going to happen. It could happen in 6 months. It could happen in 3 years.
You know, the thought of having a natural disaster and using CBDC, you know, the electric goes out, banks are without electricity for extended periods of time. That alone would seem to me to prevent the idea from going forward, but apparently not, maybe. I'm not sure, but.
Well, one thing to remember is that they don't care how many people they kill.
That's true.
We saw what happened in Lahaina. We see what's happening in Ukraine. All of this originates with the bankers.
That's right. Right.
So,
what do you like the idea of a gold and silver depository like the model of Tennessee? Eventually, that's going to be connected to a debit card to be able to connect with the gold and silver.
Sure. I think that's great. I mean, it needs to remain an asset-based system, as I said. So gold is an asset, silver is an asset, and you can create currencies based on those assets. What the Fed has done is they had taken they took the existing asset-based system, the gold standard that existed in 1913, and they just slowly corrupted it over the decades. And so, we had the Bretton Woods system in 1944, which gave us the gold standard, where an ounce of gold was $35. And then they just kept expanding the currency so much that Nixon was forced to pull the plug in 1971, and just we're on a pure fiat system now, a fractional reserve system. But in 2020, the Fed pulled the plug on that. So now we're on a zero reserve system. There are no longer any reserve requirements as of March of 2020. So they can just inflate forever.
Right. What do you think about the model that Ellen Brown has been advocating, the public banking model? Is that something?
I'm not familiar with that. You'd have to explain that to me.
It's very similar to the North Dakota idea, but it's where the public trust is basically the holder of the bank, and the funds in the bank are from the public trust of the government. And
right. The problem with the North Dakota system is that it's part of the fiat currency system. So they're tied in with the Federal Reserve system, and for that reason, it doesn't work, because it's not an asset-based system. It's essentially part of the debt-based system.
I see. Well, if we could now, we'll go to our next guest, if that's okay. Is he ready?
I believe he is ready. Let me check. Yeah, seems like he is.
Go ahead, sir.
All right. Well, first off, we knew that it was unrealistic to deal with CBDCs in 90 minutes. So Lisa has taken the bulk of the data and given the information, and Dan's given a very good overview of what's behind it all. The expectation isn't that I'm going to speak for very long today, but I do expect to speak more on Friday. And my perspective is that we are being assaulted by, let's say, 36 completely insane situations, of which CBDCs is one of them. And the idea is just to keep us overwhelmed and on our back feet, and acquiescing to whatever it is that they're eventually aiming for, which we know is 95% of us dead and the rest of us in slavery. I'm not particularly worried about this. The first time I became aware of what was going on was when I read None Dare Call It Conspiracy, which was like almost 50 years ago. And I became aware of what the international bankers were doing. But behind that, I also became very aware of the nature of some people. About 2.5% of the world is completely and utterly evil. Sure. And that takes some facing up to. And unfortunately, that's our weak spot. As someone mentioned, nobody likes to have to deal with evil people, and they'd much rather look at everybody in their own image, because they're good. People are basically good. They see other people as good. And so they just cannot countenance that someone could deliberately want to do them in. And that's what we're up against. But that doesn't worry me too much, for the simple reason that they are baked into their DNA, these evil people, is a complete failure. They just cannot succeed. There's like at least 24 reasons, life's basic laws, that they cannot help violating, and which guarantee their failure. So my view is that with joining forces.world, our job is to keep people's peckers up, if you'll excuse my French. We want them to stay upbeat. Why? Because this is not a game that we are bound to lose. Everything that these evil people are doing is not fait accompli. In fact, if you look around them, they keep failing. You know, they suddenly pivoted to Israel. Well, great. But that's because they were about to lose big time in Ukraine, or already had. And now, so they're trying to get rich from Iranian gas. They're trying to destroy Israel, or get to Israel to destroy itself. You know, they've got all sorts of things that they're doing in an effort to make everything collapse. And that's exactly their MO. They don't want people succeeding. They want to destroy. And that's completely at variance with our own purposes, which is to build and construct. And as Aaron Russo said, and as other people have said too, there's no way we cannot win because we have the numbers. But we just have to make sure that we don't start to become disconsolate at the destruction that's going on around us. And so I provide PowerPoints or lectures on how to spot evil people and how to easily defuse them so they don't make you go wobbly in life, and you can keep being in the driver's seat. And part of that is explaining or showing how they're bound to fail, the 24 life basics. And
Stephen, what are some of the basic ideas being thought about to counter this effort? What realistically, what are some of the ideas? Do you have any?
I don't have any ideas at all. No, I'm just a vacuum.
But
sorry, I'm a Brit. You've got to get used to my humor. Okay. We don't have to, but you can. But no, it's a very good question. The fact is that these people will lose. Let's just take one simple life's lesson. If you want people to do things for you, you have to be nice to them. You have to make things fair for them. That's pretty obvious to us, but not to these people. They're going around stabbing people in the back the whole time. They don't give it neither jot nor tittle for how other people are doing. So that's one very simple reason. Another thing is that these people just cannot. I mean, they lie like crazy, and that destroys trust. So the people that they expect to support them are looking over their shoulder too. So your question again was what?
What type of strategies are people coming up with to counter this, to stop it?
There are multiple strategies, and my view is that the Russians, or I should say the Soviets, had a continual rearguard action during Operation Barbarossa in 1941. They were being completely pasted all over the landscape. But while they were fighting these rearguard actions, and that's what I regard the programs that people do have to fight back, they were very busy building their armies and their tank regiments and so on. And with a bit of divine intervention from the Soviet winter, they came out swinging, and that was the end of the German army. And I think that's where we are at the moment. There are multiple programs, very worthwhile efforts. And I mentioned one particularly because Karen Bracken is here, she's one of the people listening. She's spearheading the 10th Amendment in Tennessee, and therefore it'll get exported to the rest of the country. The 10th Amendment is an extremely powerful tool for beating back against excesses by the WHO, by the federal government, even by the, I live in Tennessee too, even by the Tennessee government, because we got more than our fair share of rhinos. But this is a tool that we have, which is effective. Is it going to win on its own? Some people say no. I think it's probably the best shot we've got actually. But it doesn't matter what program people are doing, like CHD, they've got a tremendous amount of very good programs, Children's Health Defense, and so on. We need to be firing on all these cylinders. It's not for us to sit around saying, oh, I don't know if I want to support this group or whatever. No, we need to support everybody all the time as much as we can, not in the expectation that we're actually going to win the battle, because the way these evil people have arranged things, they've changed the laws so that anything good is bad and anything bad is good. And you'll get arrested if you try to stand up for what is right. And so it's incumbent upon us to keep fighting. And that's what my main purpose here is. We keep fighting on we fire on every single cylinder possible, but with the full certainty that these people are failing and will not succeed, because evil doesn't succeed. And that's not just some airy-fairy idea. The fact is that evil cuts its own feet off.
Stephen, interject. I think the greatest challenge we have presently is breaking the hypnotism that they've been able to accomplish. This is, I got this notion from Matthias Desmet, who wrote The Psychology of Totalitarianism just in the past year to explain what's going on with the whole COVID scam. So people have been hypnotized, and to break that hypnotism, we have to keep talking. More than anything else, keep talking, keep putting out that message.
Exactly. Thank you for that. And I'd like to point out that what we do in joining forces is we work on the basis that if you give someone something simple, they will do it. As soon as they do something, they're then at cause. They're then in the position where they feel that they can have an influence on their future. And so they keep fighting. And so we are putting them at slight gentle cause in order to keep them in the driver's seat. And the way we do that is we've isolated about 36 crazy situations, and we're working on 10 simple steps that we can do to fix each one of those situations. None of which is going to on its own do it. But if you have if you combine everybody's efforts in doing all these simple steps, you'll find that people are at cause and they think, okay, well, we can win this. And that's an important thing for us to keep doing in order to win this battle. Keep everyone cheerful about it and give them something to do that will actually have some effect. An obvious example is use cash, keep cash alive. We know about that. We've done that in Global Walkout. That was one of the first steps. But if we keep all uniting under our own barriers, we don't have to have one great big army led by one leader or something. We just need to keep at it in terms of doing things which are effective and knowing that we are winning and can win.
Stephen, would you not agree that it would be best to organize state by state rather than a national organization, do it, by state, since the jurisdiction of the state is usually where the laws are drafted and legislated? Would you agree with that?
I would, but it's not absolutely necessary that we have to do that. What we really need is, and the real direction we're going in, because I think it's the only thing that's ever won, is we have to have mass billions uprising and saying no peacefully. That doesn't have to happen at a state level. It doesn't have to happen with any organization at all. But I do agree with you when it comes to 10th Amendment and taking our power back as a people, or at local level, let alone state level. That is very important. But I wouldn't want to have an organization in order to get something done. I mean, I'm on social media in England a lot, and they've, half of them went to Oxford and the other half went to Cambridge. So there's a high IQ situation going on here, but the actual doingness, the actions that occur as a result of that, are missing. And I think the price of freedom. I listen a lot to Mr. Hubbard, the price of freedom is constant alertness and willingness to fight back. And I see too much constant alertness and not enough willingness to fight back. But so we need to get beyond this, what do you call this thing? Keyboard. We need to go beyond keyboard warriors and actually start taking action. I mean, in England right now, they got people busy cutting down those cameras. And as with Dan, I'm not advocating any violence or something, but if that's what someone feels needs to be done in order to give them their freedoms back, then all power to them.
How about we take some questions from our audience now? Is everyone prepared to do that?
We have one hand up already from David Schoenbrunn.
Okay, let's, David.
And let me just say also, people can put questions into the chat and we can read the questions out and to our guests. So this has been wonderful, a lot of information. I feel my head spinning a little bit, but let's go to David, and then yeah, let's get the questions coming.
Thanks. I am struck by the incredible impact that COVID had on people. That plus Trump derangement syndrome has meant that people that used to be sane and progressive are now warmongers, authoritarians, and I can't recognize them anymore. And what this has done is it has created a world of thought that doesn't map into the world of thought that those on this call share, namely the recognition that we are being imposed on by a source of great evil. And I personally have been struck by the biggest thing to get over is the recognition that these extremely powerful forces control our government and want to kill us. You know, each of you have alluded to that in your presentations tonight, but it is such a profound conversation stopper that creating a bridge to people that are still, quote, normies, it seems like an enormous communications challenge.
Yeah.
Do you have suggestions about that?
Yeah, that is what I said. That is our greatest challenge, is breaking the hypnotism.
But it's not just hypnotism. They literally live in a different cognitive universe.
Right. And it's as though you know, they're living in this situation where even if they see the facts, they just ignore them and continue on with their conception of.
Well, remember that cognitive bias means it's not a fact.
Right.
If it doesn't map to the world that they understand. So what we have said here tonight, the vast majority of the population couldn't listen to this because it challenges all these fundamental understandings of how reality works.
Well, the trick is to get them to see one thing, because if you can break through on one issue, that helps to break everything else down as well, and everything will fall like dominoes once you can break through that one ridiculous notion that they have about something. And it's there for everyone. Mostly everyone has that gateway into their brain where you can show them the absurdity.
I'm hoping that joining forces this is exactly what joining forces has been up to.
That's what we're working on. And as Stephen said, the 10 steps for each of the 36 different conundrums that we're faced with. Each of those steps, if you do one step or two steps or three steps, eventually one of those steps is going to click in your brain, and you're going to say, oh, holy crap, geez, it's not what I thought it was. But that then causes all the other dominoes to fall.
Dan, you've had success in finding the key to open some people's locks in terms of that. Is there a topic that you find to be the most successful, or is it this based on intuition?
It's all different because every person is different. Every person has a different way in. So there's no one recipe for everybody in the population. But one really great technique is humor. So humor, as I had a friend who said, humor opens the hatch, and you're able to get in there. So that's one way to do it. And
or asking questions.
Asking questions is great. And you know, one of my favorites is Jimmy Dore. I mean, I disagree with him on a lot of matters, but he tells the truth, and he does it in a way that's really funny.
Yes,
and,
he does.
How about that? JP Sears might be another one.
JP Sears is good. Russell Brand is very good, and that's one of the reasons they've attacked him. Is because he's good. He's effective. Tucker Carlson did a great interview with Matthias Desmet. And if you get a chance to hunt that down, it's out on the internet somewhere. And it's about an hour long, but it's an excellent discussion on the idea of the phenomenon of mass formation. And that's what I refer to as hypnotism, but it's a whole mass of people all lined up with the same hypnotism. And what Matthias says is keep talking, keep pointing it out. Eventually you're going to break through.
Yeah.
You can't stop talking.
And one shouldn't sorry, go on.
The self-censorship is the worst thing of all. Don't censor yourself. Don't be afraid that people aren't going to like you. Don't be afraid that they're going to laugh at you. Just keep talking. Keep saying it.
Yes. Hey, Chuck, if I may, Chuck, could we go to some of the great questions in the chat? I've noticed a couple of them, and I'm not able to access those. Could you do that for us?
Let's. I will go monitor the chat. I have a question myself, but let's have Stephen respond to the cry from David around hitting the wall of cognitive dissonance and the hypnotism and how, what are your, and then we will take some other questions, but Stephen, what are your thoughts on that? I'll just say I posted an essay in the chat from Green Liberty on cognitive dissonance, but grab it, click on it on your way out. Go ahead, Stephen, please.
Well, I don't get my knickers in a twist too much about persuading people. I put data out there, and as Dan says, and as Desmet says, just keep talking. And I'm not trying to get an immediate response because most people are pretty stupid. It'll take a while for them to get a response. And probably what it'll take for them to understand what's going on is for someone to beat them over the head with something, in life. Someone will die close to them and it's like, wait a minute, what's all this about? And that'll cause them to question. So there are 8 billion people on this planet, and I'm not trying to get all of them to react immediately. I know that if I keep talking and keep putting truth out there, that they will come to their own realizations when it's time for them to come to their realizations. We just need to hurry up the process as much as possible so that they get there as quickly as possible and can. I'm actually working on a project to purple pill people. Now, as we've got the blue pills, and we need to red pill them as much as possible. In the meantime, some of them are sort of half purple pills because they've had so many egregious situations thrown at them. They've lost people close to them, etc., etc. And so it's a matter of how do we communicate to them? And certainly with humor, as Dan said, or asking questions, using memes, and getting them to think for themselves. And the more we can do that, the better, the faster we'll get the blue-pilled community turning purple and then red. And I think one of our main dangers as red-pilled people is that we will have the blue-pilled rising up against us, as happened with the when we were being constantly slagged and prevented during the jab sessions. And it's actually interesting because Dan has got a very good book that's out of print that he's actually reading a chapter from every day or so. And it shows you what happens when the normal rank and file who can't really put more than 2 IQ points together start running the show. And the first thing they do is they push down, wipe out, make it impossible to live the people who are red-pilled. And it's our job to undercut that so that we get as many people as possible awake. And again, I don't get my knickers in a twist about this. So what if they're not awake? There are enough people in the world who you can wake up. So go for the low-hanging fruit.
And well, Stephen, Chris Steiner here. I'm sorry I don't know how to raise my hand. Sorry. I just wanted to point out Nigeria. If anyone would like to comment on that, that's a really good example of how you can fight the mark of the beast. And when it comes to this Friday's Campfire Chat, I'll play a call that I made into a local community-sponsored radio station this past Sunday. The host is a descendant of Nigerians, and he said he was going to get into the revolution, although he did not. He allowed his co-host, who is quite obviously his handler, who also mishandles the audio board and when people get to speak and when they don't. His handler said that I'll just give you a little teaser, that it was the Russians, all roads lead to Russia, and it's the Russian fertilizer crisis. So we'll be playing that on Friday. Just a brief example of how, he tries to divert the question into when I'm bringing up various points about the revolution in Nigeria. He tries to divert it into, well, what do you think about the unification of Africa? And I point out, well, it's about the unification of the world under tyranny. And when it comes to Matthias Desmet, who, if folks don't know, he's coined the phrase mass formation psychosis. Here's a meme that I made. Being in love with ideas, one finds the source in stillness where there is no want for ideas, manifested, demanifested, and yet to be. Those in love with ideas are likely among the approximately 1% some hypnotists are willing to admit cannot be hypnotized because they are already in a highly focused state. Trance starts with compliments and other flattery. No thing is more flattering to oneself and infectious to others than ecstatic God communion. Mass formation psychosis is reversible, as the individual change needed is a worthy inside job. And so I wanted to leave you with that. And, rather than talking about situations like Nigeria, how bad things can be, how good things can be, examples of more equitable commerce media I promote, like community currencies because they're tangible, time banks, barter networks, cooperatives, and swap shops, and to an extent, community gardens where you can buy, sell, trade, give away plant seeds, cuttings, and knowledge. There's a Clearwater Community Garden where I've learned that here right in my neighborhood. So if you or anyone would like to comment on that.
So is there a question in there?
No.
I don't think there is I'm going to jump in. Okay, so you had okay, so you're making an observation, Chris, of a whole bunch of stuff there. Let me make an observation that TAP wants to provide a clearing, a place for language space to talk about political truth and advancing, tactics and strategies, and for doing this work. And just to go back to David's point about, speaking into places where there's no listening makes this work really, really hard. And as you're saying, Stephen, well, speak to those that will listen, and then we do take up what Sasha Latypova calls is taking up language space, and this is what I think the work of TAP is all about. So I just want to say that we're approaching the top of the hour, and I think we were going to stop at 2 hours. And let's just go to one of our questions from the chat, and it's from Ellen, and it's a pragmatic policy question about pushing back. And I know I think Jim Roguski came on, and he's been very strong and central on WHO pushing back in the international health regulations. There's a theme here that Ellen's asking about, though. She's asking, is there a way to reform the regulatory agencies, which we have this thing called regulatory capture. So they've been captured. How do we undo? And we saw the regulatory capture with the NIH, FDA, CDC around the COVID program. But is there a way to reform them that involves truth and reconciliation? She's asking about a non-corrupt Department of Justice, non-corrupt CIA, and how do we face off with the real problem of state crimes, which is what's happened under JFK, 9/11, the 60s, and now the COVID. And now even in the Israel situation with the 8-hour stand down along the Gaza border and the allowing of that event to occur becomes another parallel of 9/11. And these are things that we notice here in the TAP community. So what about that? What about explicitly calling out state crimes, I guess is kind of the question, to regulate, to kind of get a handle and call out what has happened. That'll really crush a lot of cognitive dissonance. People don't like it. It's a very irritating thing to hear. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's been going on for over 100 years.
Okay.
In this country. I've been dealing with the FDA since the 90s, and they've been corrupt since then. I don't really see a practical way of reforming these outfits. I would say they need to be defunded. CIA, FBI, NSA, FDA, CDC. I would defund them all. Pretty much every federal agency that exists. But in practical political terms, how do you do that? The way I see it, you're gonna have to see the collapse of the United States government, which is possible, could happen, but I really don't see how you're going to make that happen politically. The Congress is practically entirely captured, and so who's going to do it, right? Who's going to pass the laws? Who's going to rein in these agencies? I don't see it happening. And the election for president is no longer an election. It's a selection process. They've already decided who the next president's going to be, and they may have a couple of different options, but whoever it is, it's going to be their guy. And we don't really have a choice. So the way I see it is, on a personal level, that's where the rubber meets the road. You're dealing with some agency, somebody's trying to put something over on you, you just say no. You just refuse to be a victim.
Yeah.
And you arrange your life in such a way that you can afford to walk away.
Right.
That's what it's going to take. You're going to have to be willing to give up the things that you like. You're going to have to be willing to give up conveniences and money and whatever else. One of the 10 steps that I advocate is give away some money. Give away a $20 bill to somebody. It doesn't matter who they are. The reason you give the money away is to break that connection in your brain that you need money. Get that out of your head. It's not an easy thing to do for some people, but physical actions have a definite impact on your brain and the way you think. It happens in a lot of different ways. But that physical action can be very powerful.
Lisa and Stephen, a reflection on this remarks. I mean, we are wrapping up. So I guess we should think about closing thoughts and understand that we have a campfire on Friday at 5 p.m., which will be informal. We have this information. Stephen is going to return. Lisa, are you going to return on?
I have another commitment that evening, but I can come briefly at the very beginning and just check in and say hi and, officially pass the baton. And
Okay.
the people I'm working with have been involved with this a long time, and they are very well capable. And I'm happy to have them answer the questions. They're extremely bright.
And that's perfect. So we get to talk and amongst ourselves as campfire, and that's on Friday. And this theme continues then.
I had one last question for
Please.
Lisa. Ask her.
Yeah.
Lisa, did I hear you correctly when you mentioned Catherine Austin Fitts? You have concerns about her. Did I hear you correctly?
No, I said that Catherine Austin Fitts has concerns about this money.
Okay, yeah, you're in agreement with her then.
Absolutely. Her comment, by the way, is that slavery during the Civil War, the slavery failed in this country for two reasons. One was inventory control, and the other one was one was inventory control. I don't remember what the other one was. But basically, they've solved it.
Collateralization.
Huh? What? Collateralization. Yeah, they basically they had problems, but they solved their problems, and they know how to do it now digitally. And so there was one other thing somebody mentioned, and I could toss this in. Somebody the other day said, if you become a national, then that would help solve some of these issues. And I don't know if you have anybody who's been talking about this. I don't know if it's a state citizen. There's issues relating to being a national. Rather than being an American citizen, that you're considered an American national or state citizen only, and that might be a way out of some of these problems. But I can't address it, so I'm only tossing it out there for consideration in the discussion.
I think that when they're filling the gulag, they're not really going to pay much attention to that.
That was my sense also.
Yeah.
We speak out. I think we have to speak out now, because those of us who know that we're being targeted, it's not that it's only us who potentially are targeted, it's every single one of us. The reason why I take and put myself out there and say anything at all rather than just cowering in the corner is because I know that they want to kill, as Stephen was saying, they want to, or maybe it was Dan, they've talked about wanting to kill 95% of them. And 95% of us, and frankly, they don't tend to like a lot of the things that I've made my life about, and I don't think they really want to keep Americans around based on the what's it called, the report, the Deagle report. They would like to reduce the population of the United States. So I don't think that we have a choice but to stand up once we realize what is really going on. It's a question, as one of the gentlemen tonight said, how do we get people to be willing to see?
So, Steve, do you have any final comments?
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for being here and being such a participative group. And thank you for organizing it. I will reiterate, we can win this. Just because they're so incompetent, these people, however competent they seem to be, there's just no way they will actually succeed. So I would like everyone to take that certainty and just keep communicating along the lines of whatever programs you are pushing. And I also want to thank Terry, who's part of our group, and others, James Roguski, for continuing to put together the Joining Forces program, so we can reach people and give them things to put them at cause. Those are my final words, and thank you to TAP.
That I would like to thank James for connecting us with Trina and her whole team that give us the opportunity to meet all of you, and hopefully we can all work together on various things to expand our reaching more people.
Yes.
And I think then that's what we're going to focus on the campfire, is the network that you just talked about that is being built, and to oppose this emerging techno-totalitarianism. I guess there really is such a thing happening. I certainly appreciate Stephen's optimism and confidence. I think that's definitely something we all want to feel. And as we build these relationships, then that will build the movement, and that will build confidence. And I think you're right. It's the non-compliance, the refusal to cooperate, that shows the weakness and the failure of their program. Apparently, very, very few people are taking the COVID vax, is what I'm hearing over the grapevine. So
2%.
That's it's a very small number,
Yeah.
and that's definitely a win by the people. So Trina, final word on Campfire coming up, and then we're going to end the recording, and then we will slowly kind of fade out of the meeting. Trina?
Yes, the question. Are you asking me a question, or do I have anything?
I'm asking you to give us I'm inviting you to give us a final sign off.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lisa, and Stephen and Dan for joining us. We look forward to seeing the three of you back on Friday, along with your other team partner, Michelle Whitaker. Look forward to meeting her, and hope everybody here on the call can return and join us on Friday evening, 8 p.m.
Great.
Thank you.
Trina's the campfire monitor. and thank you, Mike Zarzano, for leading us off and getting us going tonight. Okay, let's say thank you very much, and we'll see people on Friday at Campfire, and we can go ahead and people can have a nice evening. Chris will end the recording there.
Oh, Chuck,
Yes.
I just wanted to throw in, if folks would like to check out our website, truthactionproject.org, to learn more about us and find much more information on a variety of topics, and stay up to date on future events at truthactionproject.org, and go to our subscribe page to receive our newsletter and special announcements, and our socials page for our social networks and our video platforms, where you'll find this and other videos. And we do accept tax-deductible donations. If you enjoyed and benefited from the presentation, help keep us going and growing on the donate page. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. You nailed it. And that's what we will end our recording with. Please do go to our website, select donation, select subscribe, and read the very interesting posts that we have. Have a nice evening.
And we'll do
Thank
the
you.
outro.
Thank you. Thank you.
Night, everybody.
Bye.
Here.
Bye.